Hello folks, back with the ancient cosmography. So I just wanted to point out how this being like the 34,000-year-old, basically says it there, 34,000-year-old painting, earliest Balkan paintings, Rome, Moldova, Cave, Croatia, Deserta Grande, Madeira, and Pico, the Azores. But this entire map, just like the earliest Egyptian map of America that I have, the 5,500-year-old map, this map is entirely retrograde. So I'm not sure if that means, if that's because it was considered, like the Azores and Madeira were considered to be part of the underworld, or if it was just retrograde to be easier to copy. But it was very common for these ancient maps, zoomorphic, anthropomorphic, and more standard maps to all be retrograde. And often even parts of one map will be retrograde and prograde. Anyway, what that means is it's just flipped. Like this real actual cave painting is faced the other way. So this guy's butt is faced this way and his dick is faced that way in the original. And so yeah, this is a common practice in ancient maps. Egyptologists refer to these type of maps as retrograde because they're kind of backwards. So that one's entirely retrograde, whereas this one of Shetland, which is just near Scotland, seems to be prograde. So it could be that maybe because it's closer, it wasn't considered part of the underworld, so it was rendered as prograde, not flipped. So yeah, it's hard to know like all the ins and outs of that tradition. Because in this one, in the Lascaux, there's, basically this Australia's prograde, and the rest of these are retrograde. This one, these I had to flip, the images, because actually these islands are faced the other way. It looks just like that, but flipped. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that means, if it just is because it's to show that they're kind of subservient to Australia, or what exactly that is, or it's just because they wanted them to face towards Australia. Who knows? I doubt it would mean that Australia, that they're the underworld, because Australia would be even more of the, down under world or whatever. So since it's even further from mainland Afro-Eurasia, but in terms of the details on this map, like this bird, what is this bird? It seems to be this stuff behind Papua's butt or whatever. And so I'm thinking the bird itself is probably this island right there, that island, which I think is this Manus Island. And so, I see how this could be a tail, like kind of like that, like a little tail, and then this could be like the bird's head. It's not a super pointy beak, but you could kind of say that's the beak and this is the head, and it doesn't go down exactly on the shape behind the head is not quite the same unless we include this thing with the head, and then it goes down a bit. But hard to know. It's either that or something. This is another island nearby that I just thought it's like a cute little lizard guy with like, or an arm. This is the arm maybe, and this is the leg and the head and stuff. Tail. If I was to make an avatar for this little island, that's what I would do. So let's see. This is, a close up of the legs of Papua. So I'm not sure if there's a name for this peninsula. It might be called Moresby Peninsula or something. Yeah, so I guess this part right here is kind of the knees that stick forward a little bit there. And yeah. This is his dick. So remember, this is retrograde. So I'm showing this prograde. So it's faced the opposite way, the way it really is from a bird's eye view. So that's kind of a giveaway of that this is him, because otherwise it could have been New Zealand, which kind of has a lot of similar shapes. But the peninsula that could have been his dick if he was New Zealand is not pointy like this. This one's really pointy. So that to me is a giveaway that or is more indication that this avatar is for Papua. And along with the fact that if it was New Zealand, it would have to be prograde, but everything else here except certainly the Philippines seems to be retrograde, and Thailand and Indonesia and whatnot, so it would make sense that this would be retrograde too and be Papua. So I'm not sure the name of this peninsula. Maybe it's Dolok or who knows. It's like we have just names for towns. Like we know the names for towns, but we don't have names for geographical features anymore, or at least not in common usage. Whereas the ancients, that was their first, orientation, was focusing on the actual geographic features, topography, etc. So this is the head. So again, it's faced the other way from a bird's eye view, but I guess this is West Papua. Probably this whole thing is West Papua. Oh yeah, so it's, I guess, West Papua, Indonesia. I was thinking East Papua. So I guess this belongs to Indonesia. And so I'm not sure what these peninsulas are called. Maybe it's called Fak Fak. Who knows? Yeah. And this seems to be these 6 dots underneath the head of the Philippines. That it would be, I think it's like this, and this, and maybe together with like this, and this. I mean, all, obviously there's a million dots in here, but what it may signify is more like these three major dots, and then the kind of corresponding dots on this. There's a kind of another line of raised islands there. I'm not sure if this is part of the mainland or not. Guess that could be one of the dots. So yeah, this is the head of the Philippines there. And it's faced the opposite way, of course, because it's this is retrograde, but it kind of shows here how you can see how it's detached a little bit from this part, especially in the back. There's like an indent, so I think that would be this indent here. Yeah, so I'm not sure again what this peninsula is called, if it has a name, Zamboanga or Ipil, or I think Mindanao is the name of might be the name of this whole island. I don't know, because I know Mindanao is like a major region of the Philippines. And this is for the feet, because I was thinking the feet didn't really match, since I couldn't really see anything down there that would be them. But this, again, it's flipped the opposite way, so they're pointing this way, but this is basically the tip of that, the peninsula, which is the legs. And so it could be that these sea mounts or whatever that point out forward are the feet, and that maybe that's the reason that they, or maybe it's this and that, maybe that's the reason they're like a little more lightly colored compared to the dick or compared to some of this other stuff, is that they're sea mounts. I mean, maybe at that time they were like low-lying islands, I don't know. But what is extraordinary in some ways is that these islands seem to have been already well delineated and separated and articulated at that time. Whereas I might have thought that, the sea level would be so much lower that these would all be like attached together and it would just all be one big avatar. But, maybe this is from before, sometime before the Ice Age, or, maybe the sea level wasn't quite as different as we think. Who knows? But anyway, so that definitely could match for the feet. And so yeah, this is Manus Island, and this is like the tip of this New Ireland, which is this long, basically long island, really long, skinny island. And then there's kind of a break and a few little islands, and then there's Manus. So I'm guessing that New Ireland is at least part of this line here. And then Manus is the bird. This is the tip of New Ireland, so it could also be that this is the bird, and of course it's flipped antipodally, so that this would be the tail here and this would be the bird's head. So So that's also very possible. I'm not really sure which one it is. Like, yeah, they kind of both match pretty well for the tail. Although maybe this one matches better because it's the opposite orientation. Maybe the other one is not. See, this is a possibility. This is like Osage. I'm not for sure how you pronounce it, like the Native American nation, Osage or Osage cave painting that I was thinking could be Britain, and it could be that this his nose, whatever, is this part and includes Orkney and maybe Shetland, and that he's holding Ireland here because it's similar to the Egyptian depictions of Britain as this white giant holding Ireland. He's white because of the white cliffs of Dover, because of the exposed limestone. And, so that's definitely possible. I would guess, this could also be something celestial, like stars or something. But like even the part around here seems to match, like maybe this thing here is like this part of France or whatever that is. I guess it's part of France. And so, yeah, hard to know. It's a distinct possibility. So let's see, this is explaining how these things are all Pokemons. I'm not going to read you all of this, but some of this, much like in the Pokemon universe, Shinto practitioners believe that humans coexist with supernatural beings called kami, with each of these spirits possessing various animalistic, ghoulish, and even inanimate forms. So I think those are, the same type of nature spirits, quote unquote, nature gods that I'm studying here. Anthropomorphic and zoomorphic, the ancient religion and unsung artists behind Pokemon cards. Pokemon carries far more cultural significance due to its strong connection to the still widely practiced Shinto faith, an ancient Japanese pantheistic religion heavily connected to the natural world. So that's basically all religions until, recent times. Everybody had basically the same religion. They honored nature and they studied nature, and studying it was their way of worshiping it. Many of the designs of the Pokemon themselves were heavily inspired by some of these traditional kami. The most notable of these Pokemon is certainly Pikachu, whose core design was inspired by the Raiju, a kami who could take the form of a squirrel-like creature and transform into a ball of lightning. So yeah, he definitely looks like something cosmological, some cosmological symbolism. He could just be, Jupiter, the thunder god, thunder planet. Hard to know. Because the skies were also mapped out anthropomorphically and zoomorphically. Among the Pokemon illustrators that Shintoism influenced, perhaps none has had a greater impact on the franchise than Mitsuhiro. Things, cards. Many of the illustrations. Holy Grail Pokemon cards. So some of these cards are like $220,000 or $390,000. So Pokemon is short for pocket monsters. That's why I'm not one of these clowns that calls them Pokemon for plural, because it's like if I say Pokemon's, like somebody who actually grew up watching it, which I didn't, is going to be like, they're called Pokemon. And I'm like, no, they're a mispronunciation of the English word monsters, which actually has two S's in it, but it somehow just became Pokemon. Even following the success of the original Pocket Monsters Red and Green, the Japanese versions for what would later be released in English as Pokemon Red and Blue for the Game Boy Color in Japan, the original Pokemon creators and artists could not have imagined how big the brand would become. Valued at over $100 billion, Pokemon is now the highest grossing media franchise of all time, beating out titans like Marvel and Star Wars.